You looking to grow that bank account this weekend? Well, you came to the right place. That's right. This is the Weekly Predictor Show by Todd Talks College Football. And last week, folks, we made 27 picks. We went 16-11. That's 59.26% on the right way scale. And we made our week 4 first quarter picks last week, went 3-1. That's right. That's 75% if you played those first quarter picks. And we love the first quarter picks. I think there's a lot of value there. So we're going to play some more this week. And we're going to start right there with our first quarter picks for week 5 of the college football season. My first pick here in the first quarter frenzy, that first 15 frenzy, we're going to go with BYU minus 1.5. This is playing at plus 104. They're on the road at Colorado, but I like BYU minus 1.5 in the first quarter here against the Buffaloes. All right, my next pick here, we're going to play the South Carolina Gamecocks minus 1.5 against Kentucky in the first quarter. This is playing at plus 108, minus 1.5 for South Carolina there at home. The next play here we're going to look at Syracuse hosting Duke. Syracuse is getting 1.5 in the first quarter. This is at minus 138. I really like Syracuse getting the 1.5 at home in the first quarter against the Dookie Blue Devils. All right, let's move over to the Iowa Hawkeyes, and we got Indiana rolling in. Can Indiana throw up big points again like they did last week? Well, I are minus 1.5 here in the first quarter at a 108, minus 108. So I'm going to go ahead and take Indiana, the Hoosiers, at minus 1.5 in the first quarter. Let's move down to the Grove, and that's right, we're looking at LSU at Ole Miss, big game, and we got a first quarter spread of LSU getting 1.5 at a minus 164. I really like LSU getting 1.5 on the road here in the first quarter against Ole Miss, so I'm going to take LSU plus 1.5 here at minus 164. We got the Washington Huskies hosting the Ohio State Buckeyes, and yes, folks, the East Coast to the West Coast has not been kind in the Big Ten. They're 3-13 over the last 2 years on the road here in the Big Ten. And I'm thinking that this is going to be real challenging for the Buckeyes, giving 8.5 points for the game. But Washington's getting 2.5 here in the first quarter. And I like Washington in the first quarter at 2.5. I don't like them for the game necessarily yet. I think it's going to be a real challenge for Ohio State to win this game. So I'm not going to talk about the game just yet, but we're just going to look at this first quarter. I'm going to go with the plus 2.5 at minus 110 on the Huskies in the first quarter. And my last pick here in the first 15 frenzy is I'm going to take West Virginia getting 3.5 at home against Utah. This is playing at minus 122 right now. So I like West Virginia getting plus 3.5 at home against Utah. Not saying they're going to win that game by any means. I just think they're going to keep it close in the first quarter. All right, so let's review here real quick on our first quarter frenzy, the first 15. We got BYU minus 1.5. We got South Carolina minus 1.5. We got Syracuse plus 1.5. We got Indiana minus 1.5. We got LSU plus 1.5. We got Washington plus 2.5. And we got West Virginia plus 3.5. That's the first 15 frenzy, folks. We'll see how these hit. We are probably going to hit this thing at about 85%. I can promise you that. All right, let's break into some of these bigger games of the day this weekend, week 5 in college football. And we're going to start up there at the noon game, the noon spot, ABC, Notre Dame at Arkansas. We got Arkansas plus 4.5 at home. We got an over-under at 64.5. And the way I'm looking at this right now, folks, is Notre Dame in the money line on this, and I'm thinking this is an under 64.5 game here in Arkansas. I think 64.5 is just a smidgen too high, so I'm going to take Notre Dame in the money line, and I'm going to take the under here between Notre Dame and Arkansas. Let's roll up to Kinnick Stadium there in Iowa, and let's take a look at the Iowa Hawkeyes hosting the Indiana Hoosiers. And we all saw what happened last week, folks. Indiana just buried Illinois, and it was a bloodbath. And another one could be coming up to Kinnick Stadium here. So we've got an over-under here of 48.5 and a plus 7.5 for the Iowa Hawkeyes. So here's what I'm thinking here on this. I really do like Indiana given the 7.5, but I'm going to watch this thing to see if we can get her down a little bit to maybe 7 or 6.5. That would be even better. But I'm going to take, for now, on the predictor show, I'm going to take Indiana in the money line. This is playing at minus 300, so not a beautiful bet, but you can parlay it with something else and maybe bring up some money. Put that Notre Dame money line, combine them, and maybe get a little better. And I'm going to go the over at 48.5 here on the Indiana-Iowa game. I think Iowa's been better at scoring, but I'm not so sure Kirk Cignetti's going to stop when he hits 48.5 points first, just for his team. So I'm going to go ahead and take the over here on the Indiana-Iowa and then Indiana on the money line. Let's move down to Texas A&M, where they're going to be hosting Auburn. We got Texas A&M favored 6.5. We got an over-under at 52.5, and we got a money line paying at minus 230 here for the Aggies. So I'm going to take this game as the money line in Texas A&M. I think they're going to end up winning this game at home. We'll see how Auburn recovers from their brutal loss last week at Oklahoma and those 10 sacks, and obviously they're still pansying over that play, which they should be, but they are. And they still should be. But I'm going to take this thing at under 52.5, and I'm going to take Texas A&M on the money line. The 6.5, I'm still waiting to see if we could get a little bit better on that, maybe get that down to 5.5, see if anybody's silly enough to throw some money on Auburn here in the next day or two. But I think the Texas A&M money line in the under 52.5 is the play that I'm looking for this week. All right, let's move back down to the Grove. We talked about it earlier in the first 15 frenzy. I took LSU in the 1.5 in the first quarter of this game, and I'm going to do the same thing for the game. I'm going to take LSU in 1.5 here for the game. They're getting that, and then we got an over-under of 55.5. So I'm looking at this game at the under 55.5 at LSU plus 1.5. I think that's a really solid bet here. I'm not so sure Ole Miss can beat LSU. We'll find out on Saturday, but I really like LSU plus the 1.5 in the under 55.5. Let's move up to Seattle, Washington, and the big game at the 3:30 spot next to the LSU Ole Miss game is the Ohio State Buckeyes traveling to Washington. That's right. We got an over-under here of 52.5 in this game, and we got Washington getting 8.5 at home. I told you earlier, we got a really bad scene going on with teams traveling from the East to the West in the Big Ten. They're 3-13 in their last 16 games, and that does include a Buckeye travel there to Oregon last year, and that close loss they took there at Autzen Stadium. But we got them traveling to Husky Stadium this time, and I'm thinking that this game is an under 52.5 score. I think Ohio State coming off the bye week, if you look at their last 2 years coming off the bye week, Ohio State struggled early in those games to get it going. Those games were at home. Those games were against what I would consider lesser quality teams than what we're going to be playing tomorrow here, or they're going to be playing tomorrow up in Washington, or Saturday up in Washington, excuse me. But I think Ohio State and Washington under the 52.5 is a good play. And I really think, and I don't bet on the Buckeyes or against the Buckeyes, I only watch the games when it comes to them. I'm saying that I would take Washington in the 8.5 points if I was a bettor. That's just me. I don't know exactly how well the Buckeyes are going to perform in that hostile environment. Julian Sand going into his first start on the road. It could be a little tough early, and I like Washington's team this year. I think they can keep it close, maybe score late, cut this thing to an 8-point game or so, and get out of there with an 8.5 point. With 8.5 points, and you get the win there. So that's what I'm looking at for the Ohio State-Washington game. Let's look at Tennessee at Mississippi State, and this is an interesting game. How good is Mississippi State? We've seen them play a little bit here. They look like they're pretty decent, but we got an over-under here at 62.5, and we got Mississippi State getting 7.5 at home. Seems like a big number. I think I'm going to stick here. I'm going to stick with Tennessee in the money line here. This is playing at minus 310. Not a super great pick, but it's a little better than the minus 320 Ohio State was giving up here to get that money line. So I'm going to go Tennessee in the money line. 62.5 seems like just a little bit high for this game, but this game could turn into a score fest. We're going to find out. I think Tennessee is going to be able to do some scoring. We'll see if Mississippi State can hang up and hang on. So I'm going to go ahead and just play Tennessee in the money line here. Probably do a little parlay with something else to try to build up some odds and see what we can do. A big game, number one of Saturday night, and we're going to look at Alabama going to Georgia. Right now we got Alabama plus 2.5. We got an over-under at 52.5, playing at minus 110. We got Alabama at a plus 126 on the money line and Georgia at a minus 152. So the way I'm looking at playing this thing here is I'm thinking Alabama in the 2.5 on the road. Yes, they've played very well against Georgia over the last 10 games that they've played. We'll see if they can keep it up. Last year, remember, Alabama jumped way up on this before Georgia came back and made it somewhat respectable on the scoreboard, but it really wasn't as close as the scoreboard said. So I'm going to go ahead here, and I'm going to take the 2.5 in Alabama, and I'm going to go at the over of 52.5. These games tend to get to high scoring sometimes, and we'll see if we can get one of those games like last year where we had, 70-some points in that game, and see if we can get this thing over 52.5. Both teams are coming off a bye week, so they're both going to be ready. They're both going to have the special sauce and the scripted plays, so we'll see how they work out in that first 15 minutes and see if we can get some touchdowns on the board and start working our way to that over. So I like Alabama plus 2.5, and I like the over at 52.5 here on the Alabama-Georgia game. All right, the last game we're going to look at takes us up to Happy Valley. That's right, we got the Oregon Ducks rolling into Penn State to see if they can put this Big Ten season to rest on who the best team is between the two of them, and can Penn State get revenge from last year's Big Ten championship game? Well, I think we got Oregon at plus 3.5 right now. We got Penn State at minus 166 on the money line. Oregon at plus 138. We got an over-under on this game at 52.5. And I have not been overly impressed with Penn State's offense. I just don't think it's clicking as like it should be. I don't think their receivers, even this year, are as big a threat at all. They weren't a threat last year, and I don't think they're a threat this year, the way we're seeing them rack up the yardage, which is not good. I really think Oregon getting the 3.5 points here is the play. We have an over-under at 52.5. It's real close on this. I think it's going to be just slightly under. I think this game is somewhere in the middle 20s here, 27, 21, somewhere in that range. You're going to keep it's just under this 52.5. So I'm going to go with Oregon 3.5 for sure. And I'm going to go ahead and say the 52.5 over under. I'm going to go with the under on that here in the Oregon Duck Penn State matchup. There you have it, folks. There's our Week 5 predictor show. We'll see how we do this week. I hope you make some money, whether it's my picks, your picks, whoever's picks. Let's hope you're making money and not losing money. If you listened to me last week, you would be up some units because I was 16-11 overall in my total picks. I did miss my 3 parlays, but I play the parlays for fun because they get up more money on my return when I hit them, and I like to round robin them, so even when I miss them, I may hit them, and I hit all of them last week for at least 2 legs, except for my Road Warriors pick, which was terrible because Illinois and North Carolina State. Both failed in the Road Warrior prediction. So overall, decent week last week, better week this week. Thanks for joining on the Weekly Predictor Show. We'll see you on Sunday for the 5 thoughts on week 5 in college football. And please, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share it to your friends. We'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us, Todd Talks College Football. And remember, gather around in ALTT. We'll see you soon.